Hey everyone, welcome back to Endless Money Pits. This is a 2008 Yamaha XT250, and today I'll show you how to replace the fuel petcock. The valve in the original petcock seems to have seized in the on position, and there might be something wrong with the carburetor too because all the fuel leaked out through the carburetor overflow hose after the last time I went for a ride. What the fuck? But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The OEM petcock is almost $80, and all of the aftermarket ones look like they came from the same factory in China, but they're only about $10, so I'll give one of those a shot and see what happens. This job is actually pretty easy, so let's get to it. Here are the tools that I used for this job. Impact driver, socket adapter, 10mm socket, 4mm hex, 5mm hex, Phillips number 3, pliers, flathead screwdriver, and a magnetic bowl. For this job I also needed gloves, rags, shop towels, brake cleaner, and a new petcock. The markings on this are all backwards. On is reserve, reserve is on, and you can't turn it to off, but you can turn it to the blank spot, which is off. So that sucks. It came with gaskets and 2 screened tubes that we'll install later. You might also need a bucket for draining your tank if it's full of fuel. There are links in the description for everything I used. The knob on the old petcock is really difficult to turn, and fuel is always flowing no matter what position it's in. I put the bike on a stand to keep it upright and steady, but it's not necessary. There are 2 10mm bolts under the rear fender securing the seat.
Oh.
Usually. The side panels should be secured with Phillips screws, but they're not. Luckily, the grommet mounts on this bike are doing their job. The fuel tank plastics are being held on with 2 4mm hex bolts, but they're missing 2 more in the front. At least I had a zip tie.
How did they get that through there? Oh my.
The 3 bolts securing the fuel tank can be removed with a 5mm hex. I should get a better tool for pulling hoses like this, but this one was so old it felt like jelly and probably would have ripped anyway.
Oh, we're gonna need a new fuel line. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
Your fuel line might spill a few drops of gas when you disconnect it, but this bike is bone dry.
That is due for a replacement for sure.
At the bench, I used a Phillips number 3 to remove the 2 screws securing the petcock. This tank is completely empty, but you can swap out the petcock with some fuel in the tank. However, if your tank is full, you're probably going to want to drain at least half of it out so it doesn't leak from the cap. I took off the front of it to see what went wrong. It looks like the rubber inside hardened and started to fall apart, allowing fuel to flow past the seal at all times. Before installing the new petcock, make sure the gasket comes off and clean the area. I used some brake cleaner and a shop towel. Only use brake cleaner in a well-ventilated area.
So to figure out which hole which hose goes in, I turned this both directions and blew through this valve, and then when it was on reserve, air came out both of these holes, and when it was on, air came out just the one on the left. And then, of course, when it's off, then air doesn't come through either of them.
The longer tube goes in the hole that's open when the petcock is in the on position. Both of the holes should flow when it's in the reserve position. I used a flathead screwdriver to press the base of the small tube in all the way. The tubes on the new Petcock are shorter than the old ones, and they're also closer to each other in length. That means I'll be able to ride longer before switching to reserve, but the fuel reserve will be less than it used to be. Also, the screen on the short tube is higher on the OEM Petcock, and I assume that's to keep any debris at the bottom of the tank from getting sucked in. Maybe the OEM Petcock is worth the extra price after all, but I think we can live with the new one. When you install the new Petcock, don't forget the main gasket and the two small ones that go on the screws. I ended up cleaning the whole bottom of the tank with brake cleaner since it was so dirty, and then it was time to put everything back together. This rubber piece actually goes on top of the fuel tank, so I had to fix that later, and when I looked at the parts diagrams, I noticed there's another piece that I'm missing that goes on top of it. I ordered that piece and all the screws I'm missing from partzilla.com. Reconnect the fuel line and secure the tank with its 3 bolts. On a side note, I was replacing the fuel line a few days later, and the end of the new Petcock came off with the hose. I almost ordered the OEM one, but decided to try another cheap one. They're so cheap. They look almost identical, but they're not, and all the markings are correct on this one. The tank plastics have slots that slide onto hooks on the gas tank. Secure them with 2 bolts each.
There's supposed to be a couple more screws. We're missing screws under there.
Each side panel attaches to 2 rubber grommets, clips into the rear fender, and should be secured with a screw. The seat hooks under the tank here, and I found 2 bolts in the garage that are the right size to secure the rear.
And 6 by 1.0.
The last thing to do is add some gas, start the bike, and make sure there aren't any leaks. Check out my other XT250 videos before you leave, and leave a comment if you have any requests. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe for more of the best DIY videos on the internet. And until next time, just keep throwing money at it.